What is going on to all my movie fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, MovieFiles. Elliot back again with a brand new movie review, and today we're talking about one of my most anticipated movies of this year, and it is the 7th film in the Mission Impossible franchise. We're talking Dead Reckoning Part 1, which I got the opportunity to check out just a couple weeks before it releases nationwide, and I am so excited to be here with you all because look, I was anticipating this movie. This is a film that I think people will be talking about this summer, and we'll be answering the question, is this the best film in the franchise? And more importantly, is it worth checking out in theaters? We'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review. But first, let's start the conversation in the comments. Let me know if you all were excited to see this film, and once you've seen it, let's talk about your favorite moments, favorite characters, favorite action set piece. What were some things that didn't work for you all in this movie? Are you excited for part 2? And if you've seen all 7 of these films, how would you rank them? Let's talk about all that in the comments below. So yes, I am a big fan of the franchise. I'm literally looking at my box set over there because I wanted to revisit the previous 6 before seeing this new one. I only made it up to the 3rd one. I do plan on finishing my rewatch, but I was hyped. One of my most anticipated films this year. I saw it in IMAX. Did it live up to my expectations? Let's start off by talking about the writer and director of the previous 3 films of this franchise. I'm talking about Christopher McQuarrie, who yet again delivers an edge-of-your-seat action-packed thriller, but he never forgets to make sure that the film has actual stakes at play, and the way he structures the story is just something I really appreciate because this is a thinking person's action-packed thriller. We don't really get those type of intellectual type of films like that in this genre, which I really, really love. And speaking of loving, the thing I love about this franchise, especially the first 4 films of the franchise, is there was a new director for each of the 4, right? So you got different tones, different flavors, and Christopher McQuarrie in his own right, he's an auteur director with his own sensibilities, but he harkens back in this film to the 1996 Mission Impossible. There are so many similarities with that film and this one, whether it's the tone, whether it's the look and the feel, but also there's some homages being played in Dead Reckoning Part 1, whether it's Ethan doing his magic trick, we get some returning characters. And y'all remember that train sequence at the end of Mission Impossible in 1996? Well, we get a similar train sequence, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So I definitely appreciate Christopher paying homage to what came before while still giving us his own narrative, his own direction, his own style. And I'm just such a big fan of him. And also, just speaking of a fan, this collaboration between Christopher and Tom Cruise is just a dynamic duo. Like, it's Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, it's Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. I just love the synergy that they have together, and I think they just need to work together for the rest of their careers because they have a magical thing going on right now that I really appreciate. But speaking of magic, y'all, let's talk about this cast. I love this cast from top to bottom. There's no weak links whatsoever, and if I'm being honest, it might be one of my favorite ensemble casts that we've gotten so far this year. Let's go over some of these performances, starting off with the supporting characters. They fit so perfectly in this film. I love that we get the continuation of characters like Luther and Benji, and of course, like I had mentioned earlier, we get the return of Kidridge. So this cast just fits together so well, and there are some standouts. I will say that, but I just wanted to give an acknowledgement to the supporting cast. But the standouts for me, let's talk about Mr. Tom Cruise, who is just laying his life on the line, y'all, to give us some of the most entertaining moments that you'll see all year. But I don't want to ignore, and I think sometimes we forget that Tom Cruise is actually a great actor, at least he is in my eyes, and we get to see his acting sensibilities on full display in this film because we learn more about Ethan's past in this film and what led him on this path, but we also get to see him suffer through some tough decisions, some tough moments in this film, which really showcases that Tom Cruise is a great actor. But I just want to take the moment to just talk about the level of commitment he puts in these stunts that shouldn't be overlooked because it truly creates this immersive feeling. When you're watching Tom Cruise on those motorcycles, driving in the cars and jumping off of a mountain, that's him doing that. And again, it just creates a sense of urgency, and you feel like you're right there with him, which I really, really appreciate. And in this film, there are some of the craziest stunts that we've seen in this franchise. So Tom Cruise, the actor, is great. Tom Cruise, the stunt performer, is great. And I just love Ethan Hunt as a character. And I really love the stuff that we get with him in this film. So shout out to my man, Tom Cruise, but also shout out to one of my favorite characters in this entire franchise. I'm talking about Rebecca Ferguson, who's such a badass, whether it's her with her eye patch in the desert scene, whether we see her wielding a sword, and admittedly, as I just mentioned, she's one of my favorite characters. I wish she was in the movie a little bit more, but when she was on screen, she did not disappoint at all. I love her so much, man. But I want to talk about the new additions to the cast, whether it be our main villains, played by actors such as Esai Morales as Gabriel, who's attached to Ethan's past. He has a very menacing presence, and you really want to see where this goes with the character because he's very intriguing. But also, we have his kind of side henchman, played by Pom Klementieff, who plays Paris, who is a French assassin who's hunting down Ethan Hunt. And I love Pom. We all know her as Mantis as Guardians of the Galaxy. She's fantastic in this film. But speaking of fantastic, one of my favorite new additions is Hayley Atwell, who plays Grace. Now, her character is very important throughout this film, and she holds her own in every scene. She gives us humor moments. She's a great kind of character that has a cat and mouse game throughout this film, and she's just a welcome addition to this franchise. So again, whether it's the OGs to the franchise, newcomers, the cast just really comes together in this movie. But we got to talk about this action, because I'll be honest, that's one of the things I look forward to in this franchise. Is yes, a great story, great performances, but it's the action set pieces that I just fall in love with. And in this film, we get some of the best ones out there. The thing I love about the action in this film is they always one-up each other, right? And they play so integral into the plot and the story at hand. And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I just want to give you all just a little taste of some of my favorite action set pieces in this film. Again, no spoilers, but I'm thinking about Abu Dhabi when they're in the desert and there's a shootout going on. There's a really cool cat and mouse game going on at the airport, but then there is this car sequence that is just hilarious. Number one, there's a lot more comedy in this film than I expected, but there's a chase scene that is just jaw-dropping. But then there's the big moment, right? We've been seeing this being hyped up with Tom Cruise on a motorcycle jumping off of a mountain, and it is spectacular. It's the scene that follows, and it is him going onto this train, again, kind of recreating the 1996 Mission Impossible. But when we are on this train, I thought immediately, as you all can see on the screen now, I'm a big video game player, or used to be. Uncharted 2 train sequence. They kind of have a train sequence of a sorts in that limelight, and oh my goodness, it's just iconic. It is iconic. Edge of your seat. You feel the tension. It's one of my favorite scenes I've seen all year. I love it. Let me know when you all see the film. What did you think of that train sequence? I thought it was fantastic. But last but not least, before we get into some of my criticisms, the production, the sound mixing is fantastic, top tier. The production quality from the cinematography, the score, the stunt performances, everything behind the scenes deserves recognition, because it's just high quality art is what I think of in this franchise. And this film is just flawless when it comes to the production. But it isn't a perfect movie. Let's talk about some of my criticisms with this movie. I don't have many issues, but I will admit that the plot was very dense and created a lot of exposition and characters feeling like they were just repeating themselves and going about a very roundabout way of trying to understand the threat that was actually at hand. And again, some of those scenes dragged on a bit for me, which leads me into, without spoiling anything, now when it comes to the threat in this film. Now I can appreciate the exploration of what the threat represents. It kind of reminded me a little bit of one of my favorite films last year, was Top Gun Maverick, and it has a similar type of undertone of what they're trying to present in this film, which I appreciated about how much we rely on technology, but it was very ambiguous, and kind of at points it kind of felt ridiculous to kind of grab onto. And again, when you see the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the main threat in this film. But one last thing I want to mention is we're in this very interesting spot with part ones, whether it's Across the Spider-Verse, Dune, and just many different films that are just ending on part ones. Now I will say, this movie has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it feels like a complete story. but there are the occasional moments in this film where they're planting the seeds for part 2, and it kind of felt forced at times. Sometimes it just felt like we're only planting this here to set up part 2, which kind of sometimes took me out of the main narrative and the main purpose that we're focusing on in this film. So it didn't take me out of the movie entirely, but there are moments where like, well, why didn't y'all address that? Again, knowing there's a part 2 coming up, but sometimes it felt a bit forced within this particular narrative. So those are my main pros. Those are my main cons. Before I give you all my overall thoughts and my score and let you know if it's worth checking out in theaters, I want to take the time to thank you all for sticking on to this point in the review. If you haven't already, consider liking, sharing, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Overall, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is truly exhilarating. It is impossible to fathom how this cast and crew have managed to create some of the best edge-of-your-seat action pieces that you'll see all year. I love that we get to harken back to 1996 Mission Impossible with the focus on the consequences of the mission at hand and Ethan having the decisions that cost him greatly. The team is fantastic in this movie. Tom Cruise brings his A++ game. Love Rebecca Ferguson. Loved all the new additions, including Hayley Atwell, who was just such a great character. Yes, the action is top tier, but I'm telling y'all right now, I don't know if there's going to be a more memorable scene than what you see on the train. Now, as I had mentioned, the plot can be a bit dense, and I feel like they planted the seeds for part 2, which sometimes felt forced. And to answer my question, is this the best Mission Impossible film in the franchise? I'm not quite there yet. I think Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation are just a little bit more high quality, and I think the action's a little bit more focused on there, but there's no denying how cerebral Dead Reckoning Part 1 is. It is truly a must-see in theaters experience. I can't wait for part 2, y'all. So with that being said, I'm going to give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 a 4 out of 5. And again, I highly recommend you all give it a watch. And when you do, let your boy know in the comments, what did y'all think? Again, favorite moments, least favorite moments, favorite characters, things that didn't work for you all. Are you excited for part 2? And go ahead and share your rankings of all 7 if you've seen them all in the comments below. I'll be sharing my rankings in the coming days. But again, thank you all for watching this review. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor, like, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, consider subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that we release daily on the channel. You all are awesome. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, consider subscribing, checking out all my reviews I've done so far this year, checking out my most recent review, and I'll catch you all on the next video.
Yeah.